Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Well, tonight we look at LeaveEU, the largest pro-Brexit campaign in Britain, set up and run by the millionaire Aaron Banks. A whistleblower who worked for UKIP during the referendum campaign has told this programme how he was ordered to hand over the personal details of more than 100,000 UKIP supporters to a team employed by Mr Banks in what could have been a breach of the law. Both LeaveEU and UKIP deny that they did anything wrong. But tonight, the whistleblower has made a formal complaint to the Information Commissioner. Ed Hauker has this exclusive report.
It grew out of Brexit, but in the hothouse of division, it's thriving. LeaveEU, run by Britain's biggest political donor, Aaron Banks, on the edge of the shot, but at the heart of the fight for power.
Would have done it by damned hard work on the ground, by people like my friend Mr Banks here.
Changing this country forever.
Let June the 23rd go down in our history as our independence day.
Harvesting broad public support for Brexit into his LeaveEU campaign, the biggest pressure group in politics, more than 1 million strong online. Built from scratch, it's claimed, one social media post at a time.
The LeaveEU was left with nearly 100,000 members. It's got nearly 1.5 million people follow it on social media.
And in the so-called Brexit election, he's trying to reshape politics again, using his massive following to swing voters behind Boris Johnson and the Conservative Party.
Let's get Brexit done, my friend.
But tonight, questions about how Aaron Banks grew his power base.
I would never have allowed the database to go outside the party.
New evidence of personal data hijacked, giving LeaveEU a shortcut into Britain's Eurosceptic heartland. But were lies told to get there? And was the law broken?
I am data controller for UKIP. Therefore, I must make sure that data isn't being abused and going into the wrong hands. And it did.
Very, very good luck.
In 2015, a Brexit vote seemed a distant prospect. The battle was for Parliament, and Nigel Farage and a surging UKIP were fighting the Conservatives.
And if I get elected for you, you'll have a powerful national voice.
But after the smiles, crisis. Nigel Farage lost, and the campaign almost bankrupted UKIP.
It became very clear to me that UKIP was financially on the ropes. It was short of money.
David Souter had been UKIP's head of candidates. He saw the bills pile up. But the party's millionaire backer Aaron Banks offered help. A deal was done. He would take over UKIP's membership operation.
I understood at the time that an offer had been made by Aaron Banks to take on that weight, to take on that role and run the database, run the membership function of UKIP.
LeaveEU's call centre was at Aaron Banks' Bristol HQ.
We have currently 1 million or so leaflets, obviously we can get...
And managers at this office would run the new UKIP operation nearby. Staff there would have access to one of the party's most prized possessions, the personal details of party members which UKIP had promised would be used only for official party business. A who's who of Eurosceptic Britain.
It would have had about 135,000 individual records.
Dan Denenmark had responsibility for UKIP's data. He has never spoken about this before.
It didn't sit right with me at the time. And the least I can do is be honest about the fact that I was involved in handling that data and I was asked to hand it out. And I didn't want to do this, but I did. How big was the database? I mean, in excess of 100,000 records. Obviously the contact details, email addresses and phone numbers.
And as Aaron Banks took over UKIP's membership services, he launched his own independent and non-partisan campaign, LeaveEU. Third-party data could kickstart that campaign.
Plenty of people on the UKIP list may well have supported LeaveEU, but data law is clear. It says you must protect people's personal data, and you need permission to share it with separate organisations. To share it without consent is unlawful. Dan Denenmark was very concerned that LeaveEU would get its hands on the data he was sending to the new UKIP call centre, so he tried to limit it to start with. But then he was instructed to hand it all over.
I basically lost. That was the end of me being in control of this data. They are now being able to create their own lists, and there's no way of me stopping them from doing so.
Both LeaveEU and UKIP insist that party's data wasn't shared. But at the time, there were troubling signs that wasn't the case at UKIP HQ.
The people who answered the phone at head office approached me and said, I just had a member call up, and they said, LeaveEU has made contact with me. How do they know my contact details?
And when this ex-UKIP member was contacted by LeaveEU, they wouldn't admit specifically where they got his data. He doesn't want to give his name.
He kept phoning, he kept asking me to join. It became very persistent. It was getting towards sort of once a day. I started then to request that they stop phoning because they take my details off their database.
Did they tell you where they got your details from?
He just said it was a political database. To me, it was obvious it had come from UKIP. It was the only party I've been a member of, the only political database I've been a member of, and I requested where they got that information from.
Did they tell you?
No.
So, what did UKIP tell members about who was controlling their private data? Well, this party magazine shows UKIP VIPs at the new call centre. There's no mention of Aaron Banks or LeaveEU. Now look at this photo. Here's the original. Spot the difference? LeaveEU has been quite literally airbrushed out. A database of members or supporters doesn't only help you contact people, it can supercharge a campaign. Give a company like Google or Facebook a list of people and they can scan them for attributes, age, gender, the issues they care about. They can then find more of these similar audiences, or lookalikes as they're called. And with the right list, your audience can multiply, even explode. Did LeaveEU use UKIP's data? Undoubtedly they ran a slick social media operation that attracted support. Whatever it was, something was working. Their Facebook likes skyrocketed. By the time Britain voted for Brexit, 750,000. Aaron Banks had grown a direct line to Brexit's most committed supporters.
The sun has risen on an independent United Kingdom.
They may have been celebrating victory, but the fight wasn't over. A new battle loomed, this time with Parliament, as concerned MPs paralysed procedure and tried to block Brexit. Now Aaron Banks, the leader of Britain's biggest digital army, turned his guns on them.
Operation Blue Wave, targeting Conservative MPs, he felt imperilled his Brexit vision. Followers were urged through social media to invade local Tory associations and deselect enemy MPs. And cash was raised to fund it all.
We're now starting to deploy some of that money into campaigning against MPs that are clearly trying to undermine Brexit.
Are you really just trying to put the frighteners on these people?
Well, there's an element to that, I'm not going to deny that.
We've looked at the numbers. Of 29 Conservative MPs targeted by Mr Banks, 20 have left the party or will now leave Parliament. Banks had other uses for his online army, pushing them to battle for his old friend Nigel Farage and the Brexit Party.
Is there any other political party with the energy, optimism and belief that we've got in the Brexit Party? No, there isn't.
But the relationship has soured. First, Aaron Banks heaped pressure on Nigel Farage to stand the Brexit Party down in Tory-held seats. Now LeaveEU tell their supporters simply back Boris.
What I don't understand is how Aaron, having been so vehemently opposed to Mrs May's deal, wanted to back Boris's deal. I don't understand it.
So there's a rift between the pair of you now?
I don't understand it. It's as simple as that.
A statement from Aaron Banks said no data was shared, use of the database had direct authorisation from UKIP, and that he employed the staff accessing UKIP's data on behalf of that party. UKIP insists the Bristol call centre staff worked for it, and says the party did not lose control of its data. What cannot be disputed, in less than 4 years, LeaveEU's online power has grown, reaching beyond the Conservatives, perhaps even vanquishing MPs. UKIP and the Brexit Party too may wither, but the Aaron Banks digital army is thriving.
That was sport by Ed Howker there.